3 Spine-Chilling True Suburban Tales, Unexplained Horrors Exposed in a Cursed Neighborhood. Sarah felt the weight of her past linger as she stepped into the dusty living room of her new, run-down home. Hamburgers and sunshine lingered in the air, but dread settled in her gut. She was seeking a fresh start, but as she shrugged off the burden of her divorce, the friendly facade of the white picket fences outside began to twist in her mind. Jake and Mia, her children, bounded up the creaking stairs, laughter echoing like whispers of false hope. It was hard to shake the feeling that something was off. Things began to spiral as Sarah unpacked boxes. Every creak in the wooden planks below felt like a finger tracing her spine, and every gust of wind rattled the rusty shutters in a way that made her heart race. When her children, usually exuberant, sketched haunting figures with wide eyes full of worry, they spoke of things they claimed were watching them. Shadows slinked in the corners of their rooms, blacker than the darkest ink. "Mommy, they want to take you." Jake's words clutched at her throat, squeezing. She quaked with unease as she stumbled upon newspaper clippings in a dusty drawer, the yellowed paper detailing families who had mysteriously disappeared from her home. Each article mentioned a connection to a reclusive neighbor, Mr. Thompson, a quiet man with an unmarked van and long, bony fingers. Late at night, she often spotted him muttering with local authorities under the low glow of street lamps, their shadows weaving a shroud of fear spiraling deep into her core. The whispers of urban legends filled her mind, tales of a curse that plagued the neighborhood like a thick fog. "Mom!" Mia's terrified shriek pierced through the thick air as the children woke her, their faces pale and haunted. "The shadows! They're here!" A chill swept through Sarah as she comforted them, holding them tight against her heart. Their nightmares mirrored one another, a relentless terror prowling just beyond their bedroom doors. The lights flickered, whispers tangled in her ears, shadows deeper than the night descending upon their family. Panic wrapped around Sarah's chest like a vice, and her thoughts spiraled into dark corners. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Summoning every ounce of her mother's courage, Sarah stood firm as she sought the truth. She approached Mr. Thompson under the dim, flickering streetlights, fear turning her stomach into knots. What she uncovered was a web of manipulation deeper than any family secret. Centuries-old traditions intertwined with community prosperity hinged upon unspeakable sacrifices. It was a dark pact, and her family was swallowed whole in the neighborhood's grim past. As night cloaked everything in darkness, shadows danced around her again. Strange symbols appeared on her lawn as if written by unseen hands, and the air felt heavier. With a pounding heart and trembling hands, Sarah pulled her children close. In that moment, she realized there might be nowhere to run. She faced the mounting terror of the curse, wondering at what cost she would fight to protect her family and escape the encroaching darkness. The clock ticked ominously, and just beyond their threshold, danger lurked. Would she confront Mr. Thompson, or were they doomed to be lost in the history that haunted their new home? Sarah's heart pounded in her chest like a frantic drum. The chill in the air grew thicker as the shadows flickered closer. She hugged Jake and Mia tighter, their small hearts beating rapidly against her, mirroring her own fear. There was no escaping the dark history that clung to their home. "Mommy, let us go back to the car," Mia whimpered, glancing nervously at the dark corners of their home. "Please, just one more minute," Sarah whispered, determination slicing through her fear. She had to know what truly lurked in this neighborhood. She drew in a shaky breath and stepped outside. The streetlights cast long shadows that danced erratically with the wind. Every step felt heavier, the gravel crunching beneath her feet like the bones of the families that had vanished. A flicker caught her eye, a movement at the edge of her yard, near the towering old oak tree. "Stay here," she instructed her children, her voice barely above a whisper, as she crept toward the tree. The whispers echoed in her mind, a cacophony of warnings that gnawed at her sanity. "Mom! Don't go!" Jake yelled, his hand reaching out as if trying to pull her back. Ignoring the warning in her heart, she pressed on. The air crackled with electricity, making her skin tingle. Leaning against the rough bark of the oak, she peered into the darkness that seemed to blur reality. A figure emerged, tall and twisted, with features obscured by the dark, a silhouette against night's crushing weight. "Do you seek the truth, Sarah?" A voice hissed, wrapping around her like icy fingers. "Who are you?" She steadied herself, clenching her fists. She wouldn't show fear, not now. "The keeper of secrets," it replied, its form shifting closer. Shadows enveloped it, leaving only a glint in its void-like eyes. Sarah's mind raced. What kind of secrets? Was this a soul lost to the curse, or something entirely more malevolent? "What do you want?" "Blood for blood, sacrifice for freedom. The pact binds you now." The figure's voice slithered through the air, thick with temptation and threat. "Leave my kids out of this," she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. With a sinister laugh, it retreated, fading back into the night. The oppressive coldness lifted slightly, leaving behind a suffocating silence. She turned back toward the house, dread pooling in her stomach. The sight of Jake and Mia standing at the door sent a jolt of comfort through her, as well as a sharp pang of guilt. "What did it say?" Jake asked, his fear palpable. She knelt, brushing their hair away from their foreheads. "Nothing we can't handle, just stay close," she murmured, though her heart told her otherwise. As the night stretched on, shadows danced in the corners of her vision. The symbols on the lawn pulsed, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Desperation gnawed at Sarah. What choices laid ahead? She had to confront this dark pact, but what if doing so meant endangering her children more? As the clock neared midnight, a scuttling sound came from behind the walls. It felt like a heartbeat, echoing through the silence. Sarah's breath caught. Was it the whispers of the lost? The thrum of shadows closing in? "Mommy!" Mia's tiny voice trembled as they all heard it. What were those sounds? A cold sweat dripped down Sarah's back. She had to choose to confront Mr. Thompson and uncover the dark history, or surrender to the malevolence lurking within. Time was slipping away. Could they escape the sinister grip of their cursed home before it consumed them completely? Behind the wall, a pale hand clawed its way forward, splintering the wood. Their nightmare was just beginning. What lay beyond the darkness, waiting to see if she would fulfill the pact? Sarah's heart raced as the pale hand tore through the wall like a caged animal in a frenzy. Splinters cascaded to the floor, and the wood groaned under the pressure, a horrid premonition of what was yet to come. Jake and Mia screamed, their small bodies shaking as if they could sense the malevolence clawing its way into their world. "Back! Get back!" Sarah yelled, grabbing her kids and pulling them away from the splintered wall. The hand was followed by another, gnarled and bony, skin-stretched taunt over knuckles that looked like they could cut glass. Shadows thickened around the wooden frame, as the golden rays of the moon struggled to penetrate the darkness. She could almost taste the desperation in the air, a bitter tang that filled her with dread. "Mommy!" Mia clung to her leg, eyes wide and glossed with tears. "I don't want to be here." "Neither do I," Sarah panted, grappling with the urgent need to protect them. "But we can't let it, whatever it is, get out." Just then, the entire house seemed to shudder, vibrating with a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Something ancient and sinister was stirring, fed by the fear coursing through their veins. The strains of something darkly melodic floated through the air, echoing faintly like a twisted lullaby from a forgotten age. "Mom! Make it stop!" Jake cried out, tears streaming down his face, his small fists clenched tightly. "Stay by me," she ordered, retreating towards the kitchen while keeping an eye on the chaotic wall. As they stumbled backward, the sounds increased, clawing at the edges of her mind. She rushed to the window, yanking the drapes aside, but the outside world felt distant and disconnected. The street was swallowed in an inky void. A chill gripped her like the clawing fingertips of the darkness. "We have to get out. We can't wait for it," Sarah shouted, panic surging anew. "Mom!" Mia whispered, pointing a trembling finger towards the door. The air thickened, and she could feel it, the weight of sinister eyes piercing through the night. The whispering returned, torturously soft. The pact, your blood rushing back toward the children. Sarah steadied her breath, trying to calm the tremors within. "Look, I don't care what this thing wants. We're leaving." She grabbed both kids in her arms, pushing toward the front door, every sense alive with the urgency of danger, but there it was again, the pale hand, now mixed with part of a forearm, adding to the growing grotesqueness. It stretched forth, the skin seeming to stretch as though grasping for life, clawing and curling into something beyond the veil. It was no longer just a hand, it felt more like a beckoning invitation to despair, a promise that something worse lay beyond. "Mommy!" Jake shouted, fear coursing through him. With a biting determination surging within her, Sarah swung open the front door, catapulting them into the night air. The chill hit her like a slap. No more looking back. No more hesitation. The shadows danced menacingly in their wake as they raced forward. But she felt it, that malignant gaze following them, scraping at the edges of her sanity. The darkness was not finished, not yet. "Run!" She screamed, but the sound echoed in the stillness, swallowed by the void that threatened to take them. They dashed down the driveway, footsteps pounding against the pavement, each one resonating with frantic urgency that only intensified the creature's persistence behind them. Screams and laughter merged, the neighborhood was alive with whispers now, a symphony of chaos. As they reached the street, a horrific realization struck her. The dark secrets weren't just housed in the walls of her home, they were burrowed deep into the heart of the entire neighborhood, pulling at its very soul. And now, it yearned for hers. "What do we do?" Jake gasped, glancing back anxiously, the fear seeping through every word, but Sarah had no answer. The lights in the houses flickered, almost as if they were warning her, signaling her of the encroaching darkness. Around her, the air shimmered with inexplicable tension. And then, a shadow detached itself from the house next door, melting into the street like oil in water. "Run!" She commanded again, knowing another threat had just emerged. But in the depths of her heart, fear clutched tighter than ever. Could she protect them from this malevolence that hungered for their lives? With the darkness swirling around them, they fled into the night, unaware of the true horror yet to unfold. What lurked beyond the shadows where even light feared to tread? But there was no turning back now. A piercing scream echoed through the darkened street, louder than the howling wind that accompanied them. Sarah spun around, clutching her children tighter. The shadow loomed larger, a misshapen figure that shifted fluidly, like mist at the edges of reality. They were not free yet, the horror had followed them into the open. "Faster!" she yelled. They sprinted down the sidewalk, their breaths came in ragged gasps, the icy air turning each exhale into a white vapor. Shadows flickered past, dancing along the edges of her peripheral vision, taunting and beckoning. The whispers continued, a cacophony of phantoms echoing her fears. "Your blood, our pact," Jake stumbled, almost pulling Mia down with him. "Mom! I can't. Get up!" Sarah shot back, desperation twisting her voice. She felt a surge of fear. If they didn't keep moving, they'd be overwhelmed. She pushed them onward, adrenaline pumping as she glanced back. The shadow was closer now, an elongated arm stretching impossibly long, coiling through the air like a serpent, eager to snatch them up. "Into the playground." Sarah pointed, darting towards the dimly lit structure. The swings creaked ominously in the wind, but it offered a sanctuary, a place to regroup. The trees towered overhead, branches like skeletal fingers reaching out, shadows tangled against the faint glow of the streetlights. Once inside the playground's flimsy confines, she crouched beneath the slide, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. "Stay quiet," she whispered. Mia hugged her knees, her small body shaking. Jake peered around, eyes wide. Each breath felt loud, echoing in the suffocating silence. They could hear it, the soft patter of footsteps, rhythmically drawing closer, a relentless pursuit that didn't tire. Suddenly, the air shifted, heavy with foreboding. The whispers morphed into a rush of breath, fiery and alive. They seemed to swirl above them like a storm gathering momentum. Sarah held her breath, every nerve taut, as she watched a shape dart towards them. It was smaller this time, a girl, her face partially shadowed. "Help me!" The girl cried, but before Sarah could respond, the shadows erupted around her, enveloping her in a flurry of darkness. "Don't!" Sarah shouted, but it was too late. The girl's silhouette became indistinguishable as she vanished into the night, consumed. "What was that?" Jake whimpered, eyes darting around. "We have to keep going," Sarah urged, clenching her fists as she stood. They burst from the slide, sprinting towards the far end of the playground, where the fence acted like a barrier from the darkness beyond. Each step felt as if they were trudging through thick fog, the atmosphere clinging to their skin. Then, just beyond the fence, the shadows began to solidify. A figure emerged, pale and distorted, a mirror of the hand that had clawed through the wall. It grinned, its mouth stretching too wide, revealing a gaping void where a throat should be. The ghastly apparition lifted its arms, beckoning them forward. Sarah froze. The whispers returned, now clearer, laced with melancholy. "The pact, your blood, join us, mommy, please," Jake cried. But the creature was not just enticing them, it was compounding their fears, feeding on their vulnerabilities. Sarah felt a heat in her chest, anger mixing with dread. If she lost them now, it would never end. She knew they couldn't let it take them. "Run! We have to break free." They raced back towards the neighborhood, the voices crescendoing in a horrifying symphony of despair. But where could they really go? The streets felt alive with swirling shadows, shaping nightmares. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears like a ticking clock, drawing them closer to an inevitable end. And as they turned a corner, Sarah caught sight of her own house once more, its windows dark and hollow, even as the malevolent presence loomed nearby. "What if we go back in?" Jake suggested, his voice breaking. "No," Sarah snapped. She needed a plan, a way to confront this darkness head-on. But what lay ahead might be worse than what they had already faced. With the shadow closing in, the silence around them deepened, thick with impending doom, and as she gasped for breath, Sarah realized she had unknowingly stepped into a web, one that was woven through every home on this block, each household tethered to a dark secret that was now her own. What if the only way out required a sacrifice she wasn't prepared to make? The darkness clung to Sarah like a shroud as they approached the house, each step filled with dread. The windows remained void, staring back at them like hollow eyes. She shook her head, the idea of returning feeling more dangerous than running into the abyss. Yet, that freezing wind whispered through the trees, taunting them, reminding them of the little girl who had vanished just moments ago. Mommy Mia's voice trembled. "What's wrong?" It cut through the fog of fear pressing down on them. Sarah could feel the weight of the truth she guarded. There was something sinister about their seemingly ordinary neighborhood. The houses, once vibrant, glowed with an unsettling energy, shadows slinking from every corner, calling her to remember. "Stay close," she snapped, gathering Mia and Jake under each arm. They were together, united, but she feared they had already crossed a line they shouldn't have. Was the pact real? Had they unknowingly signed their names with blood by simply living here? Their breaths mingled, clouding the night air as they advanced towards the flaking paint of their front porch. Sarah hesitated. Something felt wrong. A sickening chill crept through her bones. "No!" Jake cried out, eyes turned towards the yard. A sudden movement caught Sarah's attention. There, underneath the porch light, a shadow darted backward quick, like a frightened rabbit. Then it stopped, a child's silhouette creeping away. It couldn't be the same girl. The thought gripped her heart. But Jake pointed, his determination rising. That way, he urged, pushing forward. Without thinking, Sarah followed, trusting her child when the need for normalcy grew unbearable. All of them were entangled in this nightmare. They would confront it. They dashed across the lawn, towards the spot where the shadow had vanished. The oppressive silence returned, broken only by the soft scraping of grass underfoot. Sarah felt a pulse, the ground vibrating beneath her shoes. It was as if the earth itself were afraid, trembling in anticipation. The night sky loomed dark and oppressive when Sarah finally reached the edge of her yard. It spilled into an empty lot that bordered a forest. She had never thought much of this place before. It was just woods, an innocent expanse of trees, and yet, it felt wrong now. The shadows danced among the trunks, as if alive and waiting for them. Over there. Mia's whisper came out, choked with fear. She clutched Sarah's arm, her fingers pressing hard against her skin. Just past the trees stood an ancient, gnarled oak, a grotesque figure twisting toward the sky. Figures congregated around its base, half hidden by the dense gloom. They watched silently, their heads barely visible, like a dark audience anticipating a show. A low murmur slithered from their lips, forming words lost in the wind. "Mom, we have to leave," Jake urged, tugging at Sarah, his voice rising in panic. "Not yet," she replied, heart racing at the sight unfolding before her. Understanding clawed at her consciousness. This wasn't about running. It was about reckoning not just with the shadows stalking them but with the very fabric of this neighborhood. "Do you see that?" Sarah pointed to the base of the oak. Something shimmered against the dirt. A pale hand twisted backward, a body hung limp. The girl was there, face poised in a frozen scream, blanched and unmoving. "No! No!" Mia wailed, horror paralyzing her little body. Jake joined in, their voices echoing around them, mixing with the dreadful whispers of the watchers. The dark figures began to sway slowly, drawing Sarah further into their grasp. "Join us," they breathed, their chorus a haunting lullaby. An understanding washed over her. These people had become hollow, mid-spiral into the pact of shadows. It hit her like a truck. The sacrifice they spoke of was not merely blood, it was living souls tethered to this place. Was this fate theirs as well? A dark terror coiled in her stomach. "Mom!" Jake's voice was raw with fear. "They want us." Recognizing the truth felt like being dragged down under dark waters. She had to act. The shadows crept closer, slithering through the air like smoke seeking to ensnare. "No! We fight. We don't give in," Sarah shouted, pulling her children close, but their choice had already begun, like an anxious wound left too long exposed. With a final push, she raced toward the trees, heart pounding with determination. She would not go gentle into this darkness. They would either find a way out or succumb together. As the figures gathered closer, Sarah's voice cut through the night like a desperate plea. "We will break this curse." With the shadows tightening around them, she took a breath filled with a resolve born from fear. But what ominous truth laid ahead, waiting to confront them at the heart of the woods? The pursuit of answers loomed, daunting as the dark figures closed in. The forest loomed like a hungry beast, branches twisting above them as if to trap them under a canopy of despair. Each step Sarah took echoed in her head, a heavy reminder of how fragile their reality had become. The whispers were louder now, swirling around her, a blend of promises and threats. Join us, join us." Mia's small hand trembled in hers, the warmth of her daughter's grip barely cutting through the chilling dread. "Mommy, I'm scared," she whined, her eyes darting around, as if the shadows themselves were reaching for them. "Stay close, sweetie," Sarah said, her voice firm despite the tremor beneath. She couldn't show fear. Not now. They needed an escape route, a chance to retake control, but every path seemed obscured by the terror breathing down their necks. Suddenly Jake stopped, his wide eyes fixated on the oak. "Mom! What's that?" Following his gaze, Sarah felt her heart leap into her throat. Beneath the gnarled roots of the tree lay something darker than night, a small, shadowy form. It writhed as if in pain. Sarah gasped. It wasn't just a shadow, it looked like a boy, his face hidden in the shadows. "Help!" The whisper barely broke through the cacophony surrounding them, but Sarah heard it clear as day. She wanted to run, to flee from whatever dark magic held this child captive. But compassion rooted her feet to the ground. "Maybe he knows a way out," she said, knowing it was a feeble hope against the swirling void. "Mom, don't." Jake tugged at her, his face tight with fear. But the urgency of the boy's desperate plea swayed her. "I have to try." With a deep breath, she stepped closer, the shadows seeming to recoil. "What happened to you?" she called, her voice steadier than she felt. The shadowy form began to rise, ghostly limbs stretching as the boy's face became visible. Eyes wide, reflecting both sorrow and fear, he looked up. "You shouldn't be here." "Why? What do you mean?" She felt a chill snaking down her spine. The whispers intensified around them. "Join us, be one with the darkness." "No," Sarah shouted. "I'll never join you." The wood seemed to shudder at her defiance, leaves rustling like laughter in the night. Suddenly, the air thickened, she could barely breathe as the unseen figures writhed in anger. The boy's shadow dissolved into a wisp of dark, its voice echoing hauntingly. "They will take you, you can't escape." Mia shrieked, the sound slicing through the tension. "Mom! Look!" A surge of panic shot through Sarah as she turned. The figures were advancing, gliding above the ground like a ripple in time. They reached for them, their elongated fingers stretching with sinister intent. "Run!" she screamed, yanking both children with her, legs pumping as adrenaline jolted through her veins. The trees felt like they were closing in, trunks twisting and writhing in grotesque mockery of escape. "Mom, I can't!" Mia cried, stumbling. Scooping her up, Sarah pressed on, Jake at her side, breathing hard in the oppressive darkness. They raced further into the woods, branches snagging at their clothes like greedy hands. Just as she thought they could break free, the ground beneath her faltered, giving way to a sinkhole filled with shadows. Sarah skidded to a halt. "Mommy!" Mia wailed, fear crescendoing. The figures loomed at the edge of the tree-line, an army of darkness watching them spill into the unknown. "You belong to us." Something inside Sarah snapped. The thought of losing her children sent an unquenchable fire roaring through her. "Not today. We're getting out." In that moment, she felt a power surge from deep within, a connection to something greater. She focused her will and took a step forward. The shadows recoiled. But the price for her defiance hung heavy in the air, and she couldn't shake the feeling that a darker truth awaited her. What was the hidden cost of freedom? With a single, desperate leap, they plunged into the unknown, but what awaited them on the other side? The shadows might have released their grip, but the specter of the pact loomed ever closer. The darkness swallowed them whole. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. Absolute silence wrapped around them like a shroud. Then came the sound of heavy breathing, ragged and terrified. Sarah's heart raced as her senses sharpened in the void. They landed in a strange equivalent of the forest, but eerily different. The trees were twisted into grotesque shapes, their bark a deep shade of never-ending despair. Their roots snaked out of the ground like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and an unsettling chill penetrated their skin. "Is this still the forest?" Jake whispered, his eyes wide. Sarah clutched Mia tighter, fighting the compulsion to scream. I don't know." The whispers returned, fainter this time, but the dread behind them was palpable, a frigid breath on her neck. "Find us, join us, we have to move," Sarah said, finding her voice again. "Keep hold of each other." They pushed forward, every footstep echoing in the heavy silence. The shadows lurked, slipping between the gnarled trees, watching with hungry eyes. Just when relief seemed possible, a faint light flickered ahead, an inviting glow that seemed to pulse with life. "Mom! Look!" Mia exclaimed, pointing. "What if it's a trap?" Jake cautioned, trembling. "But hope not," at Sarah. We can't just stay here." They approached the light, hearts pounding in unison. It illuminated a clearing, vibrant flowers blooming against the decay, casting a bizarre beauty in the oppressive darkness. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, strangely out of place. Something gleamed atop it, beckoning them closer. "What's that?" Mia said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity, breaking their fear. "I don't know, but let us be careful." As they got closer, the air crackled with an energy that made the hair on the back of Sarah's neck stand on end. The altar bore a polished, obsidian mirror, its surface swirling with a strange darkness, reflecting not just their images but flickers of memories, snippets of the past. "Mom, I don't like this," Jake whispered, gripping her arm. "It feels wrong." But the mirror whispered, "Look into the truth. You must see. No, it's trying to trap us." Mia cried, tugging at her mother's sleeve. Before Sarah could answer, the shadows came alive. They surged from the perimeter, cutting off their escape route, a living wall of darkness that loomed, beckoning them with claw-like hands. "Join us, become one with the shadows, step back," Sarah shouted, pushing the kids behind her. Panic bubbled in her chest as the whispers crescendoed, a haunting symphony of despair. "Mommy! Please!" Mia's voice trembled in the chaos. Sarah's mind raced. She caught the glint of the mirror again, its swirling depths capturing her thoughts, fears of failure, of losing her children, of the dark promises made by the figures in the forest. "No!" she shouted at the shadows. "I won't let you win. Not again." With a surge of defiance coursing through her, she stepped toward the mirror, ready to confront whatever lurked within. The moment her fingers brushed the cool, dark surface, an explosion of images flooded her mind, visions of those who had been trapped before, their faces twisted in horror, forever bound to the shadows. "Mom!" Jake screamed. "Don't do it." But it was too late. The mirror pulled her in, a whirlpool of darkness engulfing her. Sarah felt her consciousness unravel as she grappled with the tempting promises whispering sweetly in her ear. "I can show you how to save them." "No," she gasped, feeling Mia and Jake's fear wrapping around her. Would embracing this darkness mean losing herself? With one final push of will, she fought against the pull, clawing for awareness that flickered like a dying ember. The world spun, shadows reached for her, and in that moment, she understood. To break free, she would have to confront the darkest parts of herself. Could she do it? A blinding light erupted from the mirror, illuminating everything around them. Only then did she realize the truth. The shadows weren't just hunting them, they were afraid too. What twisted bargains had they made? The moment hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty, as the light spread, illuminating both the shadows and their own fears. "Mom?" Jake's whisper cut through the chaos, uncertain but filled with a flicker of hope. Sarah felt the warmth of her children, grounding her as the shadows recoiled, trembling under the force of her determination. What would they discover when the shadows finally retreated? What truths lay hidden in the light? The light pulsed, bathing the clearing in a surreal glow, pushing back the shadows that writhed like wounded creatures. Sarah shielded her eyes, squinting against the brilliance. The shadows recoiled, retreating as the warmth pressed against their cold, clammy forms. "Mom, what's happening?" Mia tugged at her sleeve, confusion mingling with fear. Sarah didn't have the answer. She felt the power of the light thrumming in her bones, a force that promised hope yet carried a heavy weight of unknowns. "Stay close," Sarah urged, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her chest. Then, from the depths of the surrounding trees, a figure emerged, shrouded in shadow yet illuminated by the shimmering glow. It loomed tall, its features indistinguishable, but Sarah could feel its gaze piercing through her. A chill swept through her, replacing the warmth of hope with a visceral dread. "Why do you resist?" The figure rasped, its voice echoing off the tree trunks. "You can have power, embrace it." Mia clung to Sarah, trembling. Jake took a step back, eyes wide with terror. "Who are you?" he shouted, his voice trembling but brave. "An old friend," the figure hissed, drawing nearer. The air grew thicker, pressing against them as if the very forest were alive with anticipation. "Join us and know the truth. You are not here by chance. Get away from us." Sarah shouted back, her heart pounding, every instinct screaming for her to run. "Your fear is a binding chain," the figure mocked, summoning shadows to dance around it like obedient pets. "You cannot escape what you are meant to become." "Mom!" Mia cried, pressing closer, her small frame almost lost against Sarah's. "I don't like this. I want to go home." "Home?" the figure echoed, voice dripping with sarcasm. "You think your home is safe? Look into the mirror, and you will see your true destiny." The moment it gestured toward the obsidian mirror, a jolt of panic flooded through Sarah. What lay within the dark depths could shatter everything she believed. The memories it had shown her, the guilt, the terror swarmed in her mind like angry hornets. "No!" she screamed, wrapping her arms around her children, desperate to shield them from this grotesque fate. The shadows flickered, feeding off her distress, tightening their grip around them. "Join us, Sarah," the figure beckoned, voice sultry and alluring. "Do not deny it. Your power lies in the shadows." With each breath, the light pulsated in tandem with Sarah's racing heart. She felt as if she was being pulled in two directions, toward an unknown power that promised salvation for her children, and toward an abyss teeming with despair. The ground beneath her cracked, roots curling like fingers, tempting her to surrender. "Mom!" Jake shouted again, his voice breaking through the weight of the darkness. Panic and adrenaline surged through her. No way could she allow this malevolence to take them. She surged forward, forcing her way between her children and the shadowy figure, eyes wide and feral. "No! I refuse to believe you." "Then you will lose everything," it hissed, the shadows swirling and slithering at its command. The light flickered hesitantly, and in that moment of doubt, a whisper stirred within the darkness. "Lose everything or gain it all? What does your heart truly desire?" The question echoed, igniting a tempest of thought in Sarah's mind. Was it simply survival, or something deeper? She closed her eyes, a shudder coursing through her. And then she whispered, "I want to save my children." At those words, her heart ignited, sending tendrils of warmth spreading throughout her body. The mirror flared brighter, resonating with her conviction, forcing the shadows back, but just as quickly, they surged forward anew, hungry and relentless. "Mom!" Mia screamed, fear breaking free into despair. The walls were closing in, and as Sarah looked over her shoulder, every ounce of dread crashed down. Would acceptance of her truth doom them all? The shadows surged forward with malevolent force, eclipsing the light, wrapping around Sarah with icy fingers. The mirror pulsed, beckoning her to step into its depths one last time. Could she face the truth, or would she allow herself to be consumed? The choice loomed over them like a dark fog, and in the chaos, a chilling laugh echoed through the forest, weaving through the darkness, chilling her to the bone. Face your fears, or lose them forever. What choice would Sarah make, and what would await them in that swirling darkness? The moment stretched painfully, the tension coiling like a snake ready to strike. Shadows flickered at the edges of Sarah's vision, taunting her, each writhing silhouette promising secrets best left unspoken. A cold sweat dripped down her spine as it became clear, the dark figure was not just an echo, it had a purpose. "Mom!" Mia's voice trembled, but Sarah couldn't spare a glance. Her eyes were locked on the mirror, the obsidian surface swirling like a stormy sea. It called to her, dark and irresistible, a portal into the depths of fear she wished to escape. "The truth is within your reach," the figure crooned, its voice like velvet laced with razor blades. You can shape it to your will. You just have to let go. Let go of what? The question clanged in Sarah's mind, echoing off the dread that nestled in her chest. The moment of hesitation allowed the shadows more courage. They advanced, their tendrils flickering around her ankles like grasping hands. I don't want this. She shouted, desperation flooding her words. I want to protect my children. Protect them from what? The truth? The figure hissed, eyes glinting with a malevolence that sent shivers down her spine. You are the very doom you fear. Embrace what you are, and they will be safe forever. Jake, sensing the mounting dread, backed away further, clasping Mia's shoulder tightly as if to ground her. Mom, we should go. Now. He cried, his voice cracking under the weight of their peril. A shriek pierced the air as the shadows lunged forward, swirling around Sarah and her children. A suffocating darkness enveloped them, urging her closer to that mirror, to the truth she dreaded most. Look! The figure commanded, voice dripping with sinister satisfaction. With a jerk of its shadowy hand, the obsidian surface shimmered, revealing twisted reflections of the past, fractured memories of moments Sarah wished to forget, arguments, despair. The accident. Mia's terrified expression looked back at her from the mirror, eyes wide in fear. Mom, please! She cried, and the weight of that plea crashed over Sarah like a tidal wave. In a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, Sarah understood, denying the truth wouldn't save them. It would only offer sweet, toxic lies wrapped in the veil of security. Enough! She roared, summoning every ounce of willpower. She stepped forward, intertwining her fingers around Jake's and Mia's. Their warmth seeped into her, rekindling the light within. I want to let you take us. We are stronger than your lies. The beam of light erupted from her body, singing through the dark. The shadows recoiled, hissing as the warmth scorched them. But just as the light pushed the darkness back, it faltered again, the figure laughing, cruel and mocking. Do you truly believe mere defiance will save you? The truth waits to claim you. The vibrations intensified, a low hum that reverberated in her bones. The ground trembled underneath them, roots burst forth, snaking and flailing, aiming to pull them under. The light flickered, gasping for breath as the shadows advanced, relentless, their hunger unquenchable. Sarah's heart raced as she brought her children closer, shielding them from the sprawling hands of twilight. We will not fall. But would her strength be enough? The shadows surged like a storm, claws of dark engulfing the sliver of light. The laughter of the figure rang like a death knell. As the air grew thick, suffocating, Sarah realized they faced not just shadows but the lingering dread of their own choices, their mistakes. The mirror rippled again, and she could feel it pulling at her mind, begging her to drown in its depths. What awaited them, truth or despair? Suddenly, the darkness parted, revealing a glimpse of a future too horrifying to imagine. A future where they lost everything, where the shadows claimed them. Make your choice. The figure's demand rang clear, haunting. Sarah's instincts screamed, her love for her children battling the shadows entwining around them. And as she fought, a piercing scream erupted from the forest, echoing all around them, a harbinger of chaos. Yet to come. Get ready, the figure whispered, voice now a chilling promise. The true horror is just beginning. Could Sarah really confront the darkness waiting within, or would fear seal the fate of them all? The ground beneath them shifted violently, as if the shadows themselves were trying to consume everything in their path. Sarah held Jake and Mia tighter, determined to protect them from the encroaching darkness that loomed all around. The whispers grew louder, a chorus chanting promises mixed with threats. Join us or lose everything. A spark of defiance ignited within her. The memories within the mirror were gnawing at her, but she wouldn't let them tear her apart. We are going to fight. She shouted, injecting her fear with newfound strength. I want to let you take us. As she stepped forward, the shadows writhed, curling and twisting in protest. The figure in the darkness, tall and menacing, watched her with eyes that glimmered like stars swallowed by a black void. How can you fight what is already part of you? You cannot escape. Watch me. Sarah screamed, her voice slicing through the thick air, though doubt seeped into her heart. But she couldn't afford to hesitate. With a surge of will, she pulled her children closer, and they moved as one, driven by fear but buoyed by love. They raced toward the edge of the clearing, toward the faint light that beckoned them like a lighthouse in a storm. Stay together. We're getting out of this. Mia's small voice trembled beside her. Mommy, I'm scared, I know, sweetie, Sarah replied softly, breathing in her fear and exhaling determination. But we're not alone. We'll find our way back. The shadows recoiled as they stepped into the light, momentarily retreating, their whispers transformed into agonized screams. The warmth enveloped them, and Sarah could feel their bond strengthening, radiating power that clashed against the darkness. Just as they reached the light, it flickered violently, threatening to extinguish. That's when Jake, with eyes fierce and brave, shouted, "We can do this together. We won, let them win. Together." Mia echoed, and Sarah could feel the weight of their unyielding spirit course through her. They have the strength of a family. The obsidian mirror shimmered ominously, reflecting more than just their worried faces. It conjured up images of the families who had succumbed to the pact, their faces filled with despair and regret. But rather than weaken her resolve, it fueled her conviction. This wasn't just about escaping, it was about breaking the cycle, saving those trapped within those shadows, saving themselves. As the darkness roared back in anger, Sarah faced the figure with newfound clarity. We are more than your shadows. We have love and light within us. The shadows screeched, their forms writhing and shuddering, as if struck by her words. Light surged from the mirror, intertwining with their voices, a melody of hope and courage. Sarah felt invigorated, a fire burning in her heart that banished the despair threatening to consume her. The ground trembled, the shadows faltering, and she felt the weight of impending freedom thrumming in the air. We break this curse. She shouted, and as one, they charged toward the figure at the center of the dark, casting their voices like a spell crafted from pure light. The figure faltered, a flash of uncertainty crossing its twisted form. No! It hissed, a mixture of rage and fear palpable in the trembling shadows. You cannot break what is already written. But they refused to be silenced. We choose our own fate. They cried together, the bond of family overpowering the dark that sought to consume them. And with that, the light erupted around them in a brilliant flash. The entire clearing ignited with a radiant brilliance as the shadows shrieked, retreating into the corners of the dark. Everything around them faded, trees, whispers, shadows, until just fragments of light remained. Mommy? Where are we going? Mia asked, wide-eyed as the light soaked them in warmth. The only way is forward, my love, Sarah replied, holding them tightly. To a new beginning. With a final burst of strength, the light obliterated the shadows, and Sarah felt the ground solidify beneath her feet again, a new ground, free from the curse that once held them captive. They emerged into an open field, the night sky bright with stars, clear of the suffocating grip of darkness. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of new grass, a tangible promise of hope. Exhausted but filled with relief and peace, Sarah knelt, pulling her children close as they all breathed deeply, soaking in their newfound freedom. We made it, she whispered, feeling the weight of fear lift. Darkness no longer held a claim over them. As they turned to face the echoes of their home in the distance, memories danced like distant flickers. This time, they wouldn't let the past enslave them. This time, they would build a life free from curses, bound only by love. The shadows of the neighborhood would not haunt them any longer. They walked hand in hand, side by side, stepping into the light of a brand new day. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support for the channel by smashing that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending because we want to know what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us get the word out together.